I did.
Not loud enough,
the detective demonstrated, barking out.
Drop the weapon,
in a voice that reverberated inside the small classroom. Zoe had to admit, she would have dropped her gun if ordered to do so in that booming voice.
And if you had waited a little longer, he was going to surrender as the scenario progressed.
But I didn't know that. Zoe kept her thoughts to herself. The purpose of the exercise for the non-law enforcement students was to gain insight into what police officers faced every day in the streets. The danger, the split-second decisions. Pete's cell phone rang.
Take over, Detective.
He rose from his chair at the Megget control.
You done good,
he whispered to Zoe as he turned toward the back of the room. She contained a smile and returned to her desk. Veronica called.
Next.
Another student, one of the regulars, moved to take his turn at a new scenario. Zoe was there for only the one class. When Pete accepted Veronica's invitation to lead the firearms training module, he'd invited her along for the ride, claiming it might help in her struggle to decide about her career path in the county coroner's office. She had no clue what a shoot-or-don't-shoot exercise had to do with whether or not she wanted to perform autopsies, but she wasn't going to argue the point. It was an evening out with Pete. Not quite a date. They still sucked at those. Pete drifted toward the back of the classroom, his phone pressed to one ear, his fingers pressed to the other. Zoe couldn't see his face, but his shoulders tensed. The room lights dimmed, and another interactive scenario played out across the screen. Zoe, however, watched Pete with the same trepidation she'd experienced a few moments earlier when faced with a hostage situation. Gunshots rang out, the lights came up. The room erupted into laughter. The student had emptied his virtual magazine without one clean hit. Pete pocketed his phone and turned, his gaze locking on Zoe's.
I'm sorry, Detective Veronica. Something's come up back in Vance Township. I'm afraid I have to leave.
Veronica raised an eyebrow, and Pete whispered something to him. The detective's jaw tightened, and he gave Pete a quick nod.
I can give Zoe a lift home.
No, she's with me. Pete crooked a finger in her direction. Ordinarily, the domineering gesture might have irked her, but the grim pallor of Pete's face told her now was not the time for smart-ass quips. She snatched her purse from the back of the chair and scurried after him, catching him in the hall. Pete? He didn't slow his long stride.
There's been a shooting, an ambush.
She jogged to keep up. Ambush? Where? Who?
One of your medic units responded to a call. I don't have all the details, but 2 paramedics were shot.
Zoe stumbled, her knees suddenly weak. Pete kept going. She regained her balance and her wits and caught him once again. Shot? Who? How bad?
I don't know the victims' names yet.
They reached the heavy metal front doors, and Pete punched through.
One medic is being life-flighted to Pittsburgh.
The cool evening air of early September chilled Zoe. What about the other? Pete stopped so fast she almost slammed into him. He turned to face her, his dour expression telling her the awful truth. The second paramedic, one of her colleagues, was dead. The 15-mile trip between the county seat and Vance Township usually took a half hour. Zoe had made it in 20 minutes when driving the ambulance, lights and sirens. With Pete behind the wheel of the police department's Explorer,